Good morning. Here we go. Today we're going to talk about re-positives, people who have had COVID-19 and test positive down the line again. They don't have the virus again. Some of them have symptoms, some don't, but the RNA is still around, or fragments of it, and the implications of that. We also want to talk about, we've talked about everything that's come down the pipe as recently as a couple days ago. It's slowing down the information. We're not hearing about the crisis. We're hearing about everybody going back to work. So I've kind of changed the title of this series to oxygen in your brain, which is important. So we've talked about embryogenesis. What we're looking at is our evolution is primarily oxygen. That's how we evolved, with a lot of oxygen. That's when things started going from single cell amoebas and such that are the earth oxygenated many millions of years ago. I'm graduating today, so I'm a little casual here, obviously. A scientist, but not without fashion. Okay, and hydration, very important. You know, we came from water. That's pretty well established. And also we're very similar to the fungi. We have the same kind of cell, double lipid membrane, eukaryotic cell that has all sorts of parts to it. Very similar to a mushroom. And then glucose was something that came and went, drought, floods, takes a long time for things to bloom and flower, and it's hard to find food when you're foraging for it. So we had to work pretty hard for that. 5 to 7 weeks sometimes we could live without it, right? And with oxygen, with water, sometimes we had to migrate to go find food or get away from predators or wasps, whatever. And water's heavy. And we need a lot of it. When we find it, we need a lot of it. We're 60-70% water. And so that we can live 5 to 7 days without water. And then oxygen is everywhere. This is how we evolved. We evolved with abundant oxygen and the help of a virus, or bacteria as they call it, a metals-based bacteria that co-localized with us many millions of years ago, similar to what COVID-19 seems to be doing in light of how we have transformed this world. This is maybe an evolutionary type. It's possible. This is hypothetical, but when you look at these repositives, we need to look at these repositives and this lingering RNA material, these many mutations that this virus has done. We need to look at this in light of what happened many, many millions of years ago with mitochondria, or now mitochondria. We call them mitochondria now. So we can only live 5-7 minutes without oxygen, right? 5-7 minutes, 5-7 days without water, 5-7 weeks without food. That's how it all started. This is evolution. This is us. This is us. Us, USA. Let's put it there because I love living here. I love being an American. I love how we evolved to find this democratic world that we live in. And many years ago, we could have gone to the agrarian, I think, which is the Jeffersonian model of farming, providing, family, in touch with nature, community, which would probably have kept this going. We would have had other things that came out probably. Life is life. It evolves with whatever is in the environment. Or we went to the Hamiltonian type money, right? Money and industry. Okay, so good. This is evolution. We evolved to this state. We have evolved. And we evolved through mostly oxygen, a lot of water, and foraging for our food. Millions of years foraging. Farming is relatively young, just several hundred years ago, really. And then, of course, it boomed in the last industrialized model. And that's kind of teetering, I would say, at the very least. Okay, so on the contrast, let's look at what's happening with the virus and these And I will say one other thing, that these mitochondria, I believe, and it makes a lot of sense, all things considered, that they derived from a common bacteria that's still out there, especially by the iron ore mines, Gallionella. And that is iron and manganese, and they use this manganese to blast iron out of bedrock, buried bedrock. They use manganese and water to blast iron out of bedrock. And when those co-localize in the presence of oxygen, add oxygen, some oxygen, then we get this, what they call a metals-based bacteria. That is Gallionella, Gallionella. And it's a funny looking thing. It's kind of crusty and crackly and has all these tangles and such except when it's surrounded by water. And when it gets surrounded by water, this is water, then it turns into this bean shape, just like our mitochondria. Okay, so, imagine millions of years ago, before all this iron was buried, however it was buried and all this, Gallionella was more oxygen was coming into the environment, which is making more and more Gallionella. And we were actually kind of single cell, multi-cell nematodes, worms, smaller animals, amphibians, reptiles, birds, perhaps, that survived the dinosaur, a group of cells, and they were all looking for oxygen because the Earth had become oxygenated. So they were all looking for oxygen. And oxygen in a cell on its own, same in our cells, it's diffusion. It just kind of seeps through the cell. There's no real channel. And for us, the iron is attracted to the oxygen and brings it to the cell so it can just slide on in there. Well, there was more and more oxygen in the air, right? It was just kind of sliding it in, but it was coming in not too quickly. Well, guess what? This mitochondria, the Gallionella, is very busy, and it mutates a lot, just like COVID-19. It can mutate. Gallionella mutates quickly and easily. So easily so that when it gets surrounded by water, it stops making all these little tentacles and strains and such. It changes. When it finds its way into fluid, and cells are full of fluid, when it finds its way in there, it becomes a little, it can become a little bean shape. So just like COVID-19 is getting into us and staying in us and using us to create new mutations of itself, a lot of the virus is our cell material. It goes into a cell. COVID-19 goes into a cell and steals all of our stuff to mutate and to reshape itself. And we've seen more and more symptoms come down the line as this thing goes through progressive generations. It's a very quick. It mutates very quickly, just like Gallionella mutates very quickly. We should do more experiments with Gallionella. We should try to understand what we've done to this world and how it's allowing COVID-19 to go after people It goes after people who are what they call glycolytic, glycosis. That means sugary. So we have turned this world. We eat all the time, every day, all the day. No foraging. Don't have to work for it. Oink, 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 oink. That creates a glycolytic process. Not really healthy. We know that. We know that through nutrition and such, but we're not doing anything about it. But maybe we need to. And our water is less and less available. It's expensive. We're drinking less and less of that. So lots of this, less of that, and we are stressed to the nines. And we're just do, go like a chicken. And you know what happens when a chicken gets its head cut off with? The oxygen's gone with that, and the thing just keeps on going until it like goes quite a ways. We can do that too. So it's progressive, chronic, progressive, chronic. A lot of us just get up every day. We have to go to keep Hamiltonian standards moving. And it's systemic hypoxic, low oxygen, hypoxia during the day. Traffic, any number of things that cause anxiety are going to cause hypoxia. So we have reversed the priority. This oxygen should be in a great big old box, but we've overpopulated and deforested the planet, and it's less and less available. Clear and present. Our water is, more and more unavailable. And yes, we get more food than we could possibly ever really need. So this virus moves in on people who have this type of system, the glycolytic system. In fact, the hemoglobin in people who are have the obesity, and the hemoglobin is supposed to carry our iron, our oxygen to the cells. There are 4 in each heme. That's a heme, and the heme is within a larger hemoglobin, and they're like up many 100,000 in a hemoglobin. Like a lot of these hemes are in a hemoglobin, so you can really load that hemoglobin up with oxygen. That takes it to the mitochondria, and one scientist said it was up to 250,000. Just a lot of oxygen is delivered to this mitochondria, who then take the oxygen and turn it into nuclear fuel, 36 units of ATP, whereas the glucose comes with a unit of glucose, and you get 2 units. Not much of a deal there. 36 units with an oxygenated mitochondria, and 2 units and issues. 2 units plus problems. So we can survive with glucose, but we're not designed to survive with glucose. Enter the COVID-19. Enter this virus. Enter the coronavirus, which taps into this body of this population, where it can tap into the current status of people in that high glucose category, which is how the world has turned into. You can tap into those people and mutate and mutate and mutate and mutate. And then what they're finding is those who manage to survive, they get it, they get symptoms, they survive it. It's the fragments of the RNA stay inside of them. They're testing positively. They're not contagious, but they're testing positively for the virus still. What does that mean? That means that you can't catch it from them, but the virus has mutated and survived in them. Just like millions of years ago when this Gallionella went into these little clusters of cells, worms, whatever. Gallionella went into this little lizard that no longer is around anymore. Gallionella may have killed that lizard, may have killed that cluster of cells, but may have survived in this little worm or this little thing. But I would imagine that when Gallionella into the human or the eukaryotic cell, and it's everywhere, it's in everything, mitochondrial E, the final mutation of this one bacteria has enabled us to evolve to unbelievable arenas. Why? Because it provides nuclear fuel for us. Now, at this point, it's going to be very interesting to look at these repositives. They test positive for the virus, and then there's a waiting period. I think some of them actually do get the virus again or symptoms, but most of them just test positive again with no symptoms or not contagious. There's a Korean study that said that they're not contagious. So it's these that have accepted the mutation and are now living with that mutation. And if the world stays the way it is, like lots of glucose, bad water, and less oxygen, we are going to change. And that worries me because I'm not sure what kind of change we can expect from this formula. I'm going to tell you what happens with our brain when we're born. When we gestate. This is very interesting, and we can maybe look at it from this aspect. This is the first 16 weeks of gestation. Kind of divides in 8 and 8. 8 weeks. It's a very thick embryonic membrane. Nothing gets through. The mothers get anemic. That means low iron. They get kind of, they're not breathing a lot. Let's say there's low oxygen, maybe no oxygen. What's going on in here is a lot of zinc. Zinc is very highly reactive. Zinc is what goes in and kills this thing. But in embryogenesis, it is very involved. Zinc and copper creates life. And you put those two together and you get light. Light. And so the entire brain is something like that. And then there's a brainstem, which is part of the central nervous system, CNS. And then a face and such. The eyes come later, so let's not go there. But everything is determined. That DNA in these 16 weeks, all the pathways are determined. And that is in a very low oxygen, no iron, and I will say a low manganese too, because that's comes later. So after that first 16 weeks, and there's no hearing in this time either. We have no hearing in here. Which is very interesting because there's a frequency resonance that's supposed to stop the RNA production. And I would imagine that frequency resonance that stops the virus, 171.161 is the basic general hertz that we need to look at. Whatever stops that, I would bet if it stops the virus, I would imagine that it is the embryo. It's probably the resonance of the embryo. It's so strange that everything we need in embryo is what kills it. This is just observation, but there it is, more of it. So this is all good. Now at 17 weeks or less, second trimester, let's say try two, to infinity, I think that's infinity, is the mitochondria. The mitochondria fuel everything. They fuel everything that stays and goes. And the more stressed we are, the more low oxygen we are, the more that's cut away. This is gone. Take that out, take that out, take that out, take that out, take that out. Depending on what's in the environment and how stressed we are and our parenting, all sorts of things. So basically, a lot of people get left with that. You lose a lot. We are born with trillions of neurons in this arena, and then copper gets dominant and zinc gets less dominant. Trillions of neurons. From my understanding, we end up with about 100 billion because potential for everything is released and then it gets sliced off. It gets pruned, as it's called. I mean, you have anxiety, low oxygen, when you don't have the fuel to support the development of neurons. After all this is development. This is pure and simple development. All of it, all neurons. Now, there's some that regenerate. We know that, but they're very, very few. Everything else is set. You've got olfactory, hippocampus neurons, and I think some gut neurons regenerate. So once the mitochondria come in, fuel, baby, big time, atomic fuel. They give us the fuel we need. Every breath you take fuels the next everything. And so you get stronger and stronger through an oxygenated system. Yes, we need some nutrition. That's where we get some manganese through almonds, leafy greens. That's where we get hydration through vegetables, fruits, and things. And we also need our protein because there's a lot of proteins going on there. And we get, we don't need them every day, but we need them regularly. So it's all designed. We're all set up to thrive in an agrarian society. But industrialization has changed it all. So let's see. So once, so the fuel, the mitochondria. And what do the mitochondria need? Iron, manganese, oxygen. They control copper, and they lock away zinc for emergencies. I'll put that in a little padlock. So they lock away zinc for emergencies. And what do they? Zinc kills. And copper organizes. But controlled by the mitochondria. Superoxide dismutase. And these elements, put copper in there. Can make a cell work in an oxygenated sense if there's oxygen, or it can turn into like kill because we don't have the oxygen to support everything. So these are basics. So my concern is that this virus has only begun, and it is maybe similar to what happened with our mitochondria 50 million years ago. And if it has mutated, then it's going to be in the next generations, and we really won't know the impact of this for centuries, probably, if it is, is taking the same route as Gallionella and mitochondria did to co-localize with us to deal with who and what we are. So we're so full of sugars and constant glucose. Yeah. So it's a concern, and to from our understanding of our own evolutionary curve that is oxygenated, we can at least discuss and do a think tank about what's going on, and do we want to stop it? I would say so. I would think so. Yeah. Personally, as a classical musician, a professional, and a scientist, and kind of a traditionalist, having grown up without a computer and such, I see a lot, and going to school the last 10 years is a lot of surface thinking, lack of creativity, lack of kind of resourcing these deeper chambers of oxygenated health that enable being connected to the creative part of who we are. That's very important to just, it's kind of a non-verbal, non-rule based thing that enables real ideas to come out. Deeper ideas, novel ideas, this discovery, another discovery, the microcephalium Northeast Brazil discovery, being able to think through this. A lot of young people don't seem to have that. So this glycolytic platform and the surface knowledge is flash, this, that, bouncing from thing to thing, not going into depth. So my whole concept of parallel learning, mastermind transfer, parallel learning, that's a whole nother series of lectures that include another aspect of the brain, which is the cerebellum. 50% of the neurons are here. We don't use all that very much. We're all up in here, zag, 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 and visual, garbage in, garbage out. But there's a loop here that we need to practice, keep going. And also when like playing the piano, there's another area connecting the two sides of the brain, very important. That's a stronger brain. Cooling concussions. You get a concussion here and you don't cool it, you're going to have a problem here, etc. So parallel learning is to be able to think through these things. I've listened to a lot of J.S. Bach. And what does Bach do? He takes a simple idea and he just takes a simple musical idea and he goes a very, very, very long mathematical, complicated distance with it. And, his music enables me to think through a complicated problem, even if I have to go this way too. It kind of gives me permission to do that. That's content. And the content of J.S. Bach, his mind gets into my mind. I'm patient and I listen through and I trust his music. Then when I have a problem like this, I'm thinking, I don't have to stop and be scared, or I can just continue to follow all the little dots. And, I don't see that in young people today. So that's all I'm going to say. And I think I'm done. Thank you for listening. It's been a great series. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with this series because until there's more information coming down the pipe. I could certainly talk on other things that I've been specializing in for years now. And I'm getting my PhD. Woohoo! 2:00 today. Come join me online. I have my PowerPoint slide. Got my picture on it. It's got probably 5 second, what do you call it? Hooding. Oh, Lord. Welcome to the future, folks. Let's regain our past and make our own future. We don't want this virus to tell us what our future is. We don't want these handheld devices and commercialism and sell. It's got to stop, I believe. We can stop it. And there's good reasons to try to put a lid on some of these things And so from the science and the understanding, we have a chance to move in and do something about it. All right, then. Have a great day. Thanks. Glad you were my family.